Welcome back to Yoshi Entertainment, everybody. So apparently, this trial was supposed to last for 8 weeks, but they're trying to wrap it up on week 7. They're trying to get the last information that they need. The prosecution allegedly feels like they don't really need to bring any more evidence or witnesses to the stand because of all of the information and the testimonies from the witnesses that we have had so far within these last 7 weeks. People have been pointing out that there was no one, which is no surprise, obviously, who came forward to testify on Diddy's behalf. So there's no, again, need to drag this on any further. Of course, Kanye West came to support him. I guess that's what he calls himself, showing up to court for what they allege was only 30 minutes and then leaving in all white. Like this is some kind of ritual and he wants people to see him like he's innocent or something to that nature. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't believe he came to support Diddy because he wanted to. I believe he came to support Diddy because he's got his own dirt out there Diddy's aware of, he doesn't want thrown out in the media. Once again, I don't believe that Kanye West supported Diddy, showed up to court to support him because he wanted to, but because it was out of obligation to protect whatever secrets he's got going on, whatever skeletons he's got in his closet, because y'all best believe Diddy knows those as well, allegedly. So they brought on Brendan Paul last week, which was week 6. They brought on this young man so that they could testify, so that he could testify. He was allegedly granted immunity because, remember, he was known as a DRUG mule, if you will, for P. Devil Combs. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he was officially listed as an assistant. That's how they do this stuff. Oh, he's an assistant. That's what they put on paper to make it look good, so to speak, to make him look like he had an actual job, when his real job was to carry around DRUGS and to basically help them set up these freak-offs. At this point in time, it was called the Hotel Nights because he was doing this around the time that P. Diddy was messing with the Jane Doe. Now, if I'm not mistaken, his occupation was a basketball player before all of this. And unfortunately, COVID basically threw a wrench, if you will, in his job. Now, he came in contact with P. Devil Combs, and that is when he started working with him around about 2022, late 2022. Allegedly, he also had this young man working from sunup to sundown like a Hebrew slave. Allegedly, he was told something to the effect of, well, if you have a girlfriend, you should break up with her because you probably won't see her very often. Allegedly, apparently, P. Devil Combs also told him something to the effect of, I'm gonna need you and the others to move like SEAL Team 6. Diddy wanted these people working like I said before, like slaves for him, where these freak-offs were concerned, whatever jobs they were doing for him, making sure he had his DRUGS. Which brings us to when he technically got fired while working for P. Devil Combs. Allegedly, he forgot his fanny pack of DRUGS whenever they were supposed to go for a walk or something like that, to bring the fanny pack while he was going for a walk with P. Devil Combs, because I think another thing he was helping him with at the time was like working out, because remember, he used to play basketball. So I guess P. Devil Combs felt like, well, maybe you can help me out with, exercising. You should know how to exercise since you were an athlete, which again goes along with that. Him making them do all these other jobs instead of actually paying them to do all these other jobs. Now, unlike the other people, allegedly he was paying this guy some pretty decent money, actually. More than pretty decent money, apparently. Like almost 6 figures worth. Like about $100,000 he claimed, if I'm not mistaken, at one point in time, if I have the information correct, like I said before. He fired this young man because he allegedly forgot to bring the fanny pack of DRUGS on him whenever they went for a walk. That's how seriously messed up P. Devil Combs allegedly was messed up over these DRUGS. The guy said, this is what he said, y'all. Y'all know I'll say allegedly, but he said that P. Devil Combs told him to go and tell KK that he was fired, but instead he went and bought some supplies with his own money. He went and bought a Lululemon fanny pack with his own money, got back in where he fit in, and just kept his head down, laid low, if you will, and kept working because he just wanted to be so loyal. He just wanted to keep working for P. Devil Combs, which is absolutely crazy. When the Lord provides a way of escape, you take it. You don't go get back in the mess. I honestly believe that was God providing a door open for him to get out of this so he wouldn't end up here. And what does he do? disrespect God by trying to go back because he just wanted to work for P. Devil Combs so desperately bad. And one thing that really pisses me off about this part of the situation with him specifically, y'all know I'm going to always call out the hypocrisy, the double standard, the partiality. People were dragging Cassie, talking about her like a dog whenever they laid out in court, broke it down like simple math for even the most simple-minded individuals to be able to understand how he had her trapped in his system, manipulation, beating her, bringing her back. He had other people keeping tabs on her, like Christina Coram and the bodyguards, who he had bring her back to him sometimes whenever she would run from him, to once again beat her after she ran from him. And on top of all of that, first of all, let's just talk about the bodyguards for a second, because I meant to call this out in a different video. All these people talking about these women whose lives were threatened, who he put hands on, but all these bodyguards, these men, they're not talking about these men like a dog, as they should be, because those men stood around and they were paid to watch Diddy do this to these people, and they didn't do anything. People want to make it an only the women issue, or old Cassie sold her soul by being around with P. Diddy, but not wanting to acknowledge that she tried to get away from him, that many people tried to get away from him, but what did he do? Prevent them from doing it. Once again, a part of the enterprise was him using these people who were on the payroll to keep tabs on the people he was abusing. But they don't want to talk about how these bodyguards, who could have beat Diddy up, who could have intervened, who could have stopped, who could have said, I'm not about to let a man pay me to watch him abuse women, because they knew what was going on. But nobody's talking about those men like a dog. And nobody's talking about Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul got fired by Diddy. Going back to our timeline here, him testifying in court. He could have said, he could have played it off. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm such an awful person. I'll never show my face in front of you again for the infraction that I have committed. And then act like he was oh so devastated. I'm going to take this as punishment, Diddy. You're so right. And then as soon as he turned the corner, he could have skipped out of there, ran out of there, and didn't have to worry about risking jail time for carrying around illegal substances for a man he knew was a criminal. But instead, he chose to go back to try and work for him again, because he just wanted to work for him so bad. He was just so loyal to Diddy. I don't want to hear anybody else talk about, women are so delusional sometimes when it comes to men, and, they have this, I'm going to stick by him anyways kind of mentality, when there are Brendan Pauls that exist, when there are people like those bodyguards who, if I'm not mistaken, got listed as co-conspirators in this entire big mess because of their involvement in helping P. Devil Combs. Once again, like I said before, he is the epitome of I'm gonna stick beside him because I'm so busy trying to be loyal instead of doing the right thing. And once again, bringing it back to how much he had this guy working. This man said that he was working so many hours for P. Devil Combs that he had to take prescription medication just to stay awake. And when that wasn't working, he took the cocoa, if you will, to keep himself functional during all these hours that he was working. They had to stay awake, like I said, for P. Devil Combs. He also admitted at P. Devil Combs' direction, he took the pink cocoa, which they called 2C, if I'm not mistaken. He took it willingly. They asked him, did you take any of this stuff other than the cocoa he was taking to keep himself awake while working like a Hebrew slave willingly when he could have got out of it, unlike some of these other people? He said that he took the pink cocoa on purpose. He said, he wanted me to test it out. He wanted you to test it out. Why he didn't take it himself? See, that's an issue of common sense right there. I'm going to need you to think a little bit harder. He wants you to take a DRUG that he won't even take himself. Now, I know that he started taking it, but this could have been, for all we know, before he started taking it and after they actually formed it. Because allegedly, the only difference between that and actual cocoa is that it's just mixed with pink food coloring, which I know has to be horrible for the human body. Because food coloring is not healthy, unless it's organic. Even then, not good to put in your body. He was very much aware of what they call the King's Knights, which I think KK coined the term, if you will. Hotel nights was the term that the Jane Doe said in court. That's what she referred to it as. He was very much aware that this was going on. He was so aware, in fact, that he was helping them set this stuff up. He was helping them set this stuff up. He had contact with Christina Coram, what to do, stuff to bring, supplies to have, the DRUGS. He even had contact with Fahim Muhammad. And once again, I still don't believe that man is about to be charged with anything because he's deep in the industry. If I'm not mistaken, he was also tasked with getting lingerie for the Jane Doe, if I'm not mistaken, and the money transfers. They would ask him, or he would ask, who do I get the money from? Who do I give the money to for whoever? Because remember, they were paying these escorts with like actual cash, physical cash, moving around large amounts of money. Now, remember when all those people were saying, clearly he didn't learn his lesson and he didn't care? Because after that Cassie video dropped and after the lawsuit dropped, after the lawsuit, y'all, that dude was out there still doing freak-offs. P. Devil Combs was still doing freak-offs up until he got arrested. They were not lying. This young man got in court and he testified on the stand. According to his testimony in the court of law, he said after that lawsuit dropped from Cassie, they stopped doing the freak-offs in the hotels at P. Devil Combs' direction. They started doing it at residences instead. This is corroborated with the Jane Doe. Remember, she testified that there was a hotel night, if you will, where they had it at her home that he was helping her pay for, or that he was giving her the money to pay for whenever he was kicking in the doors and then he beat her. So all of this checks out. All of it is 100% believable, and it makes sense. During all this part of the testimony, the prosecution is who is asking him these questions. They proceeded and ask him, okay, well, when you were found with the DRUGS in the fanny pack, as you said before, those DRUGS weren't yours, were they? Of course, the defense shifted once again to this goofy behind tactic where they yell out objection to try and derail what's going on, make people lose their train of thought, or keep them from getting down to the truth in the court of law. Thank goodness they have a judge that actually is being a good judge, and he said, overruled. So that Brendan Paul was able to admit and tell the truth in the court of law and testify that the DRUGS he was carrying around that day when he got arrested, was not his. It belonged to P. Devil Combs. They shift over to allowing the defense to question him. They really tried to play this, oh, well, you were just only playing a minor role in this grand scheme, if you will. You know, you were trying to find a new job after the virus, if you will, that should remain unnamed because of YouTube reasons ended up causing you to not be able to do this job anymore. You were just playing a minor part, right? You weren't actually a DRUG mule. You just had a little bit here and there for personal use, if you will, maybe what you were doing and what you did for P. Devil Combs was just a minor little thing. They were really trying to downplay him carrying around illegal substances willingly because, again, remember, I'm going to keep reminding everybody about this. He had a way of escape he refused to take because he wanted to prove how loyal he was to P. Devil Combs. The prosecution should have pulled a defense move, and they should have used that against him in the court of law, like how the defense was using all this other stuff against these witnesses and throwing it in their faces. They should have reminded him, you said you went back to work for him after he fired you. You could have walked away. You knew he was dibbling and dabbling, if you will, in illegal substances. But you intentionally fought to get that job back working for him to do that mess over again. So why should we have any more sympathy for you when you knew what was going on and you said you wanted to do this? You willingly did all of this. They need to keep reminding everybody about that. Then they started to make it seem like the Jane Doe was lying on the stand when she said she no longer wanted to participate in the hotel nights. This dude had the audacity, Brendan Paul had the audacity to sit up his behind on that stand and fix his raggedy mouth to make it seem like the Jane Doe consented to everything that was going on. I've already made it a statement on this channel in multiple videos. Whether or not she decided, oh, I might be into this, or this might seem uncomfortable for me. I don't want to have sex with all these men, but if this is what you want, I guess I'll do it because you're telling me you'll give me money if I do it. The moment she said, I no longer want to do this, especially if they have the evidence in the form of text messages, as she said, oh, I told him in writing and verbally. If they have text messages of her saying, I no longer want to do this, don't make me do this. Like the ones they brought up in court, her saying, I don't want you to just use me to satisfy your crazy lust and then toss me aside unlovingly, if you will. Whatever point she decided, I no longer want to do this, that means the consent left the room. He even admitted on the stand later on he was not present during these hotel nights. Yeah, he set them up, but he wasn't there to witness what was going on. So how in the world, I'm trying to figure out, is he going to fix his raggedy mouth once again and say the woman consented when you weren't even there during said acts that you're claiming she consented to? And also, you can't tell if somebody's consenting to anything if they're high out of their mind, if they're as high as a kite, which remember she said that she was on the stand during these hotel nights, or at least most of them. So again, you can't consent if you're high as a kite. Once again, the consent left the room when P. Devil Combs invited the DRUGS and had her on them during these hotel nights. Y'all know I have to say allegedly. So once again, that was ridiculous for him to even sit up there and fix his raggedy mouth to say. But this was, of course, according to the plan of the defense. It doesn't matter if it was his opinion that he thought that the Jane Doe consented to it, while she actually didn't. Doesn't even matter, especially to the defense. What matters is the fact that he said that, and it's sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the jury. That's what they wanted. And it did seem like they were trying to lead him and feed him answers that they wanted him to say. They were trying to coach him, and it was stupidly obvious. Very much so. Playing tricks like, oh, well, you wouldn't work for P. Devil if he was a criminal, would you? Like, if you actually knew he was a criminal, you wouldn't work for him, would you? And of course he was going to say, well, no, I wouldn't work for him if I knew he was a criminal. Or they would ask questions like, well, if you knew he was abusing people, you wouldn't continue to work for him, would you? And of course he's going to say, well, no, I wouldn't continue to work for him if I knew he was a criminal. They were really leading him and coaching him with these questions so that they can make P. Devil Combs look like he wasn't a criminal, like he wasn't out here putting hands on people's daughters, like he wasn't doing some of the most disgusting things known and unknown to man. And it was really befuddling to me because in my mind, I'm like, either you're lacking common sense or you're playing a game with the defense to try and make P. Devil Combs not look like a monster, the monster that we all know he is, especially according to all these testimonies, not just from the women, but the men too. And he really has fallen down the rabbit hole, if you will, of delusion, trying to be loyal to P. Devil Combs, because how in the world else would you describe or explain this young man talking about, oh, if I knew he was a criminal, I wouldn't have worked for him, when this criminal had him carrying around illegal DRUGS for him. Let's all take a little walk down memory lane. This was him when they caught up to him, arrested him, had him in handcuffs, because he was carrying around illegal DRUGS on behalf of P. Devil Combs. This man literally got you arrested because you were carrying around illegal substances for him, trying to be loyal, trying to work for him, trying to get paid by him. But he's not a criminal. Last time I checked, a criminal is somebody who habitually commits crimes. He was habitually buying, selling, and doing illegal DRUGS. Had people like him carrying it around for him. But he gonna really sit up on the stand and say, I didn't know he was a criminal. Or if I would have knew he was a criminal, I wouldn't have worked for him. He's not a criminal. He's not a bad person. That's what he was trying to make it seem like. So like I said before, either he's missing a few marbles or he's very desperate to help the defense paint P. Devil Combs like he's not a monster. Now, some people might be saying, oh, well, maybe he was afraid. Like I said before, that's not what the optics said in court. He was going out of his way to be a loyal one, to be a ride or die, if you will, for P. Devil Combs. After, mind you, after getting arrested because of him. Now, I say that, but at the same time, him getting arrested was really because of him. because I'm going to keep reminding everybody about this. He had a way of escape. He didn't take it. He got arrested because he chose to keep working for a criminal. He chose to remain passionately loyal to a criminal. Also, mind you all, he did all of this, had the audacity to do all of this on the stand after he was granted immunity, which is a slap in the face to the people who granted it to him. You need to be thanking God they haven't snatched it away yet, or they're not planning to, especially after saying under oath that if he knew P. Devil Combs was a criminal, he wouldn't have worked for him, even though he was literally helping the guy with criminal activity because of the DRUGS and arranging those hotel nights, moving around all that money to pay the escorts. Anyways, allegedly, apparently, there were two other jurors who they were contemplating replacing. One of them allegedly was because he got sick one day of the trial and he could not make it because he was sick. So they just decided, I guess, to replace him with a backup juror, if I'm not mistaken. There have been a lot of rumors going around, misinformation, if you will, this week. They're alleging that TMZ was releasing information because y'all know TMZ is raggedy, right? They be out here supporting the villains. Y'all know that, right? They're alleging that some leaks may have came from TMZ, allegedly, or from somewhere, allegedly, trying to stir up mess and put out misinformation talking about, oh, his state charges got dropped. And people were explaining that state charges can't be pardoned, but federal ones can. And everybody was scared because they thought that Trump was about to pardon P. Diddy. Part of me believes that's not going to happen because he knows MAGA would never let him live it down. But the other part of me feels like these people, I can't put anything past them, and I'm not. Anything could happen, quite literally. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be shocked, shooketh, if you will, but I wouldn't be surprised. Because all these people are high up there. They have their own agenda that they're following, usually, and when I say usually, I mean all the time, it's the devil's agenda. So literally anything can come out of these people. Now there are rumors, I've seen this very briefly, that he might only be getting about 15 years. They're picking and choosing certain testimonies like the arson, the kidnapping, that they're going with whatever they're sentencing. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, they're trying to wrap it up this week. They're trying to come to a conclusion and rest the case. So we will see very soon what's true, what's not true, what's going to happen. I really hope they actually serve some kind of justice. I've said before, I don't believe this is justice. I believe that this is the industry punishing him for stepping out of line. Although I hope and pray that these people who were abused by P. Devil Combs, who are afraid of him walking free and not being able to live peacefully and without misery or threat to their safety, I pray that for them, he ends up in prison for a very long time. Under the prison even. But anyways, y'all let me know how y'all feel about all of this down in the comments below respectfully. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Y'all all have a very blessed, beautiful, and safe day.